Hello, welcome to Good Questions, Good Answer. Today we have another interesting question from our audience and our Venerable Sender to help us solve this problem together in our program. So, Venerable Sender, are you ready?
Yes, thank you for having me on the program.
Thank you very much for joining us and helping me solve the problem together again. You see, since we are staying home and getting our life comfortably, do what we like, take our vacation time, sometimes we gain our bad habit extra than we normally have. So that's bring the question today. How can we overcome our bad habit, especially right now in the time of COVID? People struggle with their lives, conflict arise, and bad habit also as well. So Venerable Sander, can you give us some advice? How can we overcome this habit, bad habit?
We talked about this the other day that it's important to understand yourself and to deal with any bad habits and to develop good habits.
Mm-hmm.
In this context, sometimes in Buddhism we talk about self-conquest or the victory over the self.
I see.
And it's interesting that there is some similarity in which the famous writer Victor Hugo, he talked about the struggles of man. He says there are three struggles that humankind has always struggled with, and these are religion, society, and nature. And he says basically that all the things we do come from these three struggles. When we talk about religion, he actually emphasizes the struggle with oneself, the struggle with basically what comes down to your bad habits. And this is similar to what the Buddha said in the Dhammapada. The Buddha, he said, this is often raised as quite a well-known quote by the Buddha. He said, "You may conquer 1,000 times 1,000 men in battle, yet he indeed is the noblest victor who conquers himself." So this is in Dhammapada 103.
Well, it's kind of like also the same saying in Chinese proverb about conquer oneself, overcome all 100 battle or something like that.
Oh, there is a similar saying, but I think it's slightly different though. It's by the author of The Art of War, Sun Tzu, said that if we know ourselves and we know the enemy, we can conquer any battle. But here the Buddha, he refers not only to he doesn't refer to the mundane battle when you fight each other in warfare, but he refers that he says there is a much more important battle, the battle against the bad habits, basically what that comes down to. So, and to overcome the ignorance in yourself.
Well, can you a little bit clarify how can we gain this bad habit? Is it inside ourselves or from our mind or somewhere?
Usually the bad habits in Buddhism, especially in Theravada Buddhism, are defined as three defilements. Three, you could say, negative emotions and unrealistic perceptions that covers it. Wow. The first one is greed, which basically means desiring for something which is not based on wisdom, right? So you desire for something and it doesn't really help you. It's not a desire that helps you forward. And there is hatred. Hatred is never good. And then there is delusion. Delusion is like you do not see things as they really are. It's not the delusion as in the delusion when somebody goes to the mental hospital, but it's a delusion more general that we all suffer from, that we sometimes don't see things as they really are. We often don't. We think that something is not important and it's actually important. We think that something is very important, well, it's actually not. And we look down on other people. We raise our own selves. We do not see things as they really are. That is what it comes down to.
I see. So it's kind of like our mind is clouded by these defilements, and also similar to when we are looking at things with glasses on, so that we don't really see things as it is.
Right, colored glasses. That's exactly what it is.
I think when you mention it like this, it's kind of like it's so important that we must also look inside ourselves rather than look outside.
Right.
We have to do our self-reflection then, right?
Yeah. Kind of goes against human nature, doesn't it? I mean, we tend to look outside all the time. I mean, our entire education system in modern days is
Yes.
based on looking outward. We learn about the entire world. We learn about all sorts of sciences and arts. But many things that have to do with the mind and good character are just erased from the curriculum because it's not interesting. We are trained as good scientists, good artists, good statesmen, but we are not trained in knowing yourself. So
True.
in Buddhism, the knowledge which is most important and most emphasized is the knowledge of oneself.
Yes.
The importance of understanding and knowing yourself. We are used to looking outside of yourself. I mean, we are used to looking outside of ourselves from the time we are born. We do not
Exactly.
have eyes that point inward. We have eyes that point outward.
Yeah.
So because of this, we are not usually aware of our bad habits.
No, we don't.
That's where the problem starts. We can talk for hours about bad habits, but if you are not aware of them, you can't do much about it. The Buddha, he compares this with a fish which is so used to the water that it doesn't notice the water anymore. And once you remove the fish from the water, it starts to struggle to get back into the water.
Yeah. You
So
can see when you're fishing.
Sorry?
You can see that when you're fishing, you struggle.
Right. But don't start fishing because I talk about this, okay?
No problem.
short advice to the audience. Okay, but anyway, when we are focusing more inwards, which we can learn, then that starts to change. So as we are children, we are not looking much at ourselves. But once we grow older, we should learn to develop more self-insight, to regularly reflect on ourselves and become aware of our bad habits and also our good habits.
When you speak about a bad habit, when we try to reflect on that, we find our habit. But it's kind of make me wonder though, how can this habit originate, or where is it originated from?
Yeah. Now habits, bad habits, good habits, they don't come from the sky, they don't come from aliens, they don't come from some other people, but they come from your own action. A habit, per dictionary definition, is an ingrained pattern of behavior which we acquire through frequent repetition.
I see.
But there's one thing which is not mentioned in the dictionary, and it's also very defining. Whenever we do not act on our habits, we feel frustrated.
Yeah.
And that is just like the fish which is thrown out of the water, which I just mentioned. So this is very defining. If we want to know whether we have a habit or whether we are addicted to some pattern of behavior, just ask yourself if you feel that you feel frustrated if you don't do it. But on the other hand, good habits also have this element, but it does feel different. But there is a feeling of you're missing something. So when you're not meditating, you're used to meditating every day. When you don't meditate, you don't. I wouldn't say you feel frustrated, but you do feel that something's missing.
When we talk about the habits, in this case, can you explain a little bit further after the origin of the habit, and also what are the three things essential that can correct ourselves back into get rid of a bad habit and instill good habit in our mind?
Now we know that habits, they come from what we do regularly, what we say regularly, what we think regularly. But it actually, you could also say that it starts when you see something, right? The things we see and hear, we might. Okay, the habit starts when we start to do things, but it might be modeled on other people around us. That is possible. Now, the only thing we can overcome a habit is by developing another stronger habit. That is the way habits work. So you cannot just pull out some wizardry and then get rid of a habit, because we tend to justify our own habits. There is this cartoon of an old grandfather who's sitting and smoking, and then his grandson asks him, "Granddad, why do you smoke?" And then he coughs a lot, and it's a very aggressive, long cough, and he's almost sneezing. It's very serious. And then the grandfather responds. He concludes at the end, "I find it relaxing to smoke." So it seems like his words do not match his behavior. He seems to suffer because of his smoking, but he doesn't realize it. So often we justify our bad habits. We are not aware that we are suffering, and we continue upon our bad habits. Our good habits, on the other hand, don't have this element of causing us to suffer, and they give us actually good energy. Both of these good habits and bad habits are, you can compare like a program, like a computer program or a laundry program or any kind of program. And as long as you repeat it more often, it becomes like a habit, a pattern of behavior.
Yes.
So what you often do is what you become. That is basically what it comes down to. It sounds very much like a catchy phrase from the internet, but it's actually what Buddhism is about. What we often do, that is what we become. And therefore, what we often do, we should take care of that, before it becomes a habit.
Well, it's kind of remind me like we are what we eat.
Right. We are what we eat. You could also say we are what we speak, and we are what we think. We become whatever we do often.
Right. What are the good habits that we need to instill in ourselves to get rid of the bad habit then?
So there are some scholars that say that the habit of exercising every day is very fundamental and important, and it causes many other good habits to occur. But in the teaching of our temple and our tradition, there's actually 3 habits which we feel that, which we very much believe are fundamental to all other good character development. And these 3 habits are very much emphasized in our temple's culture and our tradition's culture.
Okay, can you name them?
Yes, the first one is respect. Now I have to say they are maybe slightly differently defined than what these words mean in English. Okay.
Right.
The first one is respect, which comes down to being aware of the goodness of people, of objects, things that are valuable and that convey good qualities of the mind and heart. Self-discipline, the habit of being in time, being tidy, being orderly. These are self-discipline, and also being aware of your speech. Patience is the habit, as I mentioned before in the episode that we did about optimism and realism.
Okay.
Patience is about the habit of persisting in doing good and avoiding all that is wrong, even when we have adversities in our life, even if we have obstacles in our life. And also not to be misled by distractions, by things that are leading us from the path. You could say then that patience is persisting and resisting. So these are the 3 habits that are essential, and they very much work together.
So you have to practice all 3, huh?
Right. And respect is when we are showing our respect to our people who we believe we can learn good qualities from. And self-discipline helps us to build up the actual routine and the actual willpower to model ourselves on these good people. And patience is the persistence that we need to carry this entire process to its final completion when we are trying to develop ourselves into a better human being.
I see. Well, it's kind of like everything starts from respect first, because well, if I recall, as I recall, it's come from this term re and spec. Re is mean to do something again. Spec is mean to look. So when you combine this term, it means to look again. To look at what? if you want to start a good habit, you may have to look at some person who can be your model to start practice of the good habit. So
Yes.
if you practice like this, what would be the result then?
So I think that if more research is done about this, I mean secular research, then they will find that these are actually very fundamental to human behavior. Because okay, exercise may be good, and I understand why scholars focus on that. But there's also the development of character, and if we look at the development of character, you need to have a model, you need to have inspiration. So respect is very fundamental in that.
Yes.
As for discipline, I think that's already been mentioned a lot by researchers, by psychologists, because self-discipline is basically the ability also to have a long-term goal and to practice to attain a long-term goal. The traditional example is like you have you give a small sweet cookie to a child, but you say to the child, if you don't eat this cookie within 1 hour, you get a bigger cookie. Now, the wise and disciplined child will say, well, then I'm not going to have this little cookie, because I will be having one in 1 hour, and it can wait, it can resist. So this is an example of how a child may be trained to look at a higher goal than just the present moment. But of course, it's just a stupid example, but it just shows that how life works. If we are able to resist some superficial pleasure in order to develop a higher good, a higher happiness. Okay. And so these qualities are very fundamental whenever we try to develop good character.
Well, the thing about developing and reciting, we all know now from what you said. But how do we develop them though?
You can develop them by comes down to little tiny habits in your daily life. Because everything starts with small things, small steps. As the quote that is often referred to, trivials create perfection, but perfection is not a trivial, right? That's what the quote goes. So many small things create perfection, but perfection is not a small thing. That is often attributed to Michelangelo, and this is actually a quote that very much captures what is meant by when we develop good habits.
I see.
So respect, you can break it down to just the daily habit of looking at the good qualities of other people, finding strengths in others. And this is easier said than done,
Yeah.
Because we tend to look at, we are wired as human beings to look at people's bad qualities because we tend to look for dangers, and we tend to look for, that's what we're wired. We're kind of inclined to do that. Let me put it that way. So in respect, what we are learning is to look at the good qualities of others, especially those people who we can model ourselves on. So when you often look at the good qualities of other people that are good people around you, then you find yourself more inspired, and you also start to develop the habit of looking at the strengths of others. When you look at the strengths of others, you feel less frustrated, you feel more inspired, and you also see things more as they really are, because you kind of compensate for this tendency to always look at the bad side, and then you develop a more realistic, complete, comprehensive way of looking at the world. And you, of course, you have the inspiration to do good as a result. So I remember from my own life that when we are trained as a monk, right, in the first year, I'm sure that you can also remember that there is this assignment or this little practice which you are taught to write down the good qualities of another monk or another person every day. Do you remember that?
Yes, it wasn't fun, but well, it's good lesson.
Yes. And in the beginning, you write about the people that you know, which is easy to write about, and the people who are close to you. At a certain point, you try to write something new every day. And at a certain point, you really have to think very hard to find a new person or a new good quality. So it's really a very good practice. So that is clear. And then self-discipline, basically self-discipline you can train by just doing it every day, having a routine, being disciplined. When you go somewhere, be in time. When you do something, do it in a tidy and orderly fashion. When you speak in a polite way. These are things that we can practice every day. That is, of course, that all requires persistence, and that's where patience comes in.
Well, it's kind of like you just need to do 3 things in conclusion. Think good, speak good, do good. That's it.
Right.
And then you can complete the good habit in this way. Simple and easy. So I hope everyone can do that too. In this way, is there any suggestion you want to leave for our audience?
So these are all examples of how you can learn to overcome yourself and conquer yourself. One example that I would like to conclude with for today is meditation. There is one teaching in which the Buddha lists 10 reasons why people choose not to meditate. You could say 10 excuses. And then he also lists another 10 reasons that people tend to meditate. And the 10 reasons that he lists not to meditate, the 10 excuses, are you still have much to do, so you don't want to meditate now. You worked very hard today, so you don't want to meditate now. You have to go somewhere, or you just came home. You're hungry, or you just eaten. You don't feel well, or you just recovered. These are all things which we can use as excuses. There's always some excuse that you can come up with. But then the Buddha, he exactly mentions the exact same 10 reasons in explaining why we could meditate. So he says, if you still have so much to do, that means that you're going to work very hard and you're not going to have time to meditate. So better meditate now. Or you work very hard today, that means you haven't had time to meditate. So better meditate now. You have to go somewhere, that means you're going outside. You won't have the opportunity to meditate. So better meditate first. Or you just came home, that means you've been outside. You haven't had the opportunity to meditate. So better meditate now. You're hungry, meditate because you will feel light and good. You don't have much food in your body, so you feel light. Or you just eaten, that means that you have a lot of energy, a lot of calories in your body. You will be able to meditate well. Or you don't feel very well, that means that you're going to need meditation to recover, to help you increase your chances of recovery quickly. Or if you just recovered, then you have to meditate to prevent you from relapse. So these are all examples which the Buddha gave that we can think in the world, look at the world in a way that inspires us. So patience is not only about grinding your teeth together and just moving onwards, but it's also about looking at the world and seeing opportunities to do good all the time.
Well, I think that's a good suggestion. Well, I used to be like that too. So when there is no time to meditate, I always said, there's no time. When actually now in our temple, we were asking to do 2 hours meditation. Now I have to put my time in meditation in priority. So now I found it easier to do because first in the morning meditation, afternoon in the morning, in the evening meditation, before go to bed meditation. Now I can make it 2 hours quite simple. So maybe it could be a good suggestion for anyone who are having difficult time to practice meditation. And also developing these 3 qualities too. Well, everyone, I hope you are getting this good answer from Venerable Sander today to help you start practice of meditation and begin to build and create your good habit. And so that way you can find a way to make yourself be happy in daily life and continue on after this time of COVID-19. Thank you very much, Venerable Sander, for joining us and helping solving the problem again today. We hope to see everyone again next time. Good questions, good answers. See you.